मैं सादर मंच पर आमंत्रित कर रही हूं आदरणीय श्री किरण रिजिजू को, केंद्रीय कानून एवं न्याय मंत्री, और उनके साथ बातचीत करने के लिए वरिष्ठ पत्रकार डॉक्टर जका जेकब जी को आमंत्रित कर रही हूं। श्री किरण रिजिजू एक ऐसे व्यक्तित्व हैं, एक ऐसे नेता हैं जो हमेशा सही और खरी बात कहने में कभी परहेज नहीं करते। हमारे उत्तर पूर्व भारत के जनता की आवाज को बड़ी मुखरता से उन्होंने मुख्य धारा में प्रस्थापित किया है और ये उनके जैसे कार्यकुशल नेताओं की कुशलता का, कर्मठता का परिणाम है कि उत्तर पूर्व भारत की जनता आज अपने को भारत की मुख्य धारा से जुड़ा हुआ महसूस करती है। एक बार पुनश्च जोरदार तालियों से इस मंच पर उनका स्वागत कीजिए। और मैं आमंत्रित कर रही हूं श्री राजेंद्र दर्डा जी, एडिटर इन चीफ को, कि वे स्वागत करें आदरणीय किरण रिजिजू जी का। भारत के केंद्रीय कानून और न्याय मंत्री, अनुभवी राजनीतिज्ञ, कुशल प्रशासक, आपका इस मंच पर हार्दिक स्वागत है। और साथ ही स्वागत मॉडरेटर डॉक्टर जका जेकब जी का। Dr. Zaka Jacob ji, who has an impeccable ability to get to the heart of the matter. A very warm welcome to you as well. और बिना समय गंवाए आइए अब बातचीत शुरू करते हैं। मैं डॉक्टर जका जेकब जी को मंच सौंपती हूँ।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। हमारे साथ कानून और न्याय मंत्री किरण रिजिजू हैं। So a lot of issues have been cropping up. We in the news business, it is our job to sort of highlight some of these issues. Let's start with the latest, in which just yesterday we had a Supreme Court hearing. This is on the issue of same-sex marriage. आप हमारे दर्शकों को समझाइए कि while the government is open to same-sex relationships, and you had mentioned that in the historic Supreme Court verdict which read down Section 377. But yesterday you had submitted an affidavit saying that you are opposed to same-sex marriage. Why is a government that is okay with same-sex relationships opposed to same-sex marriage? Why is it a matter of policy?
Thank you very much for inviting me here. This Lokmat National Conclave is very important place, and the views which you make here will certainly go deep amongst the people. First of all, on this issue which you just raised, we are, as a government, we are not opposed to any kind of activities done by anybody as a citizen. As a citizen, as long as you follow the law of the land, you are free to do whatever you choose to do. A person of any sex can also choose to lead a particular life which is suitable to him or her. But when you talk about marriage, marriage is an institution. Marital institutions are guided by different specific laws. And I'm not going to the details of the laws, but they are guided by different provisions in different laws. When it comes to institution, it has to be regulated by certain laws. The law must be enacted by the Parliament of India, because Parliament of India reflects the will of the people. Court can definitely interpret into many things. Court can also go into certain issues which requires some clarity in terms of correct interpretation. We have no issue on that. The only issue with the government is marriage is an institution, it has a sanctity, and it must be backed by law which takes into account our traditions, our ethos, our heritage. There are so many things in our country. India is not a country which emerged suddenly. It is an ancient country with rich cultural tradition and all customary practices. So that is why our position is very clear on that.
So one of the other interpretations that has happened recently is on the appointment of Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioners. The court seems to be of the view that in order to maintain neutrality and impartiality, they want to ensure that there is a committee comprising Prime Minister, Leader of the Opposition, and the Chief Justice. The government reckons this is an infringement because it's an appointment, it's an executive appointment. How do you see this constitutionality of appointment versus the political nature of appointments?
First of all, you have to identify what are the issues which are administrative in nature, which are issues which are totally at the domain of judiciary. The Constitution says very clearly that for the appointment of election commissioners, it has to be done through a system, a law, which has to be enacted by the Parliament. I agree that there is no enactment of any act on that. But that is at the domain of the legislature. The matter which came up in Supreme Court is not because of some conflict or some kind of confusion. And there is no, urgent requirement also. But somebody has gone and filed as PIL, and the Supreme Court took cognizance of that, and they delivered a judgment. When the Supreme Court or any court in India pronounce a judicial judgment, I should not comment on that. If I feel that there is encroachment into the domain of legislature or the executive, I will react in appropriate forum or initiate appropriate action. But on the basis of a judgment, I am not ready to offer a quick reaction to that.
No, not just in the context of this, but even in the context of appointment of judges. This has been going on for a while now between the government and the court. Do you plan to bring any legislation which clearly demarcates when it comes to appointment of, because if the court is saying, in order to maintain neutrality, you have to have the Chief Justice on the panel to choose the Chief Election Commissioner, the government can argue the same for appointment of judges also.
On the question of neutrality, the Constitution has given certain provisions. As a member of Parliament, I will be biased towards my party. The moment I take oath as a minister, I am supposed to be neutral, because everybody is equal for a minister. Whether you are a minister or election commissioner or your person in any of the constitutional authority, you are supposed to be or expected to be neutral. If every appointment is to be done by a committee which involves the Chief Justice of India or a judge, who will perform the judicial function? We all know that the total numbers of pendency in India is rising very fast. We are almost at 5 crore 90 lakhs pendency of cases. Now people are saying that so many cases are pending in the courts. Courts are unable to deliver judgment or unable to dispose of enough numbers of cases, which is not correct actually. Courts are disposing numbers of cases, but the new coming up cases are higher in numbers. That is why the pendency rates are increasing. But just because the pendency rates are increasing, can government or the legislature say that we will take over judiciary? Because judiciary is unable to deliver the judgment or to finish off the pendency of cases, they should give up, and the legislature and the executive should take over the judicial work. It cannot happen. In a similar manner, the matter which are with executive or with the legislature should be left to them. There is a clear-cut demarcation of responsibilities amongst the three wings in the state. If you try to breach those thin lines, then it will precipitate a situation which will lead to crisis. It can be political crisis, constitutional crisis, or some kind of resentment. So we have to be very mindful. And I must tell you another thing, that our party, led by Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji, we have utmost respect for judiciary. Independence of judiciary cannot be compromised. We have to strengthen judiciary, and we have been doing that. All this, the digitization which is going on in the Indian judiciary, all the technological supports being provided to the judiciary, during the peak of the pendency, Indian courts were still functioning. This is because under the e-courts phase 2, we have given adequate support to the Indian judiciary, and under the e-court phase 3, we have allocated 7,000 crore, which has been announced in the budget. So no government has come close to our government in terms of support provided to the judiciary. So we are very clear. Independence of judiciary also means independence of legislature and independence of executive. Independence is not for one organ. All the organs have the equal and reciprocal independence, and we must respect that.
So it's interesting you pointed this out, and a lot of people have been asking this question of the courts also. We have 5 crore plus cases that are pending across various courts, Supreme Court, High Courts, and the lower courts. The judiciary's argument, and some former judges, some current judges have observed this as well, is one of the reasons why such a high number of pendency of cases is because judges' appointments are getting slow, or government is sitting on judges' appointments. How would you respond to that?
There are numerous reasons for all this pendency, but as I said, I will not go into the details of those reasons because there are numerous instances which I can cite. But the key issue is government and judiciary will have to come together to resolve the crisis of the rising numbers of pendency of cases. As a law minister, I am constantly in touch with the judiciary. Judiciary has constituted various committees like e-committees, infrastructure committees, and the Chief Justice of India or Chief Justice of High Court, they are also administrative head of their institutions. So my Department of Justice is constantly working with them. We are working as a team. It is just because some of the actors in the society who are deliberately trying to create certain kind of fissures, confusions, or conflicts, they only try to portray in a negative manner that there is some kind of a misunderstanding or conflict between the government and the judiciary, which is not correct. We have an excellent working relationship with the judiciary, and we have to work as a team.
Now, one of those actors you may want to qualify is the opposition. We've seen this in Parliament also the last couple of days. Rahul Gandhi says that all institutions, including the judiciary, all other democratic institutions in India have been captured. How do you respond to that?
First of all, I don't want to respond to Rahul Gandhi because his statements do not contain any concrete substance. So it doesn't deserve that kind of response. But since there's a calibrated effort being launched in the country and outside the country, then the matter becomes serious. There is a design going on in our country to weaken our democracy and to weaken the judiciary. They are also trying to tarnish the image of the Indian democratic system and Indian judiciary. These people are making some preemptive accusation that government is interfering into the judicial matter or government is trying to control the Indian judiciary. Those people who say that Indian judiciary is compromised, those group of people who constantly say that government is trying to capture the Indian judiciary, they are actually trying to undermine the Indian judiciary itself, because Indian judiciary is absolutely independent. Worldwide, the Indian judiciary is respected. So by attacking Indian judiciary, by undermining the authority of the judiciary, they want to weaken our system. There is a design. I know everything, but I will not divulge all the details here. The calibrated efforts are done in such a way that they want to actually question the credibility of the system itself. When I talk about the system, the government, all the institutions, all the authorities, including legislature, executive and the judiciary. That is why this will never succeed. Indian judiciary is strong. Indian judiciary is independent. By launching these attacks against judiciary, by calling Indian judiciary as weak and compromised, they cannot undermine the authority of Indian judiciary. As a law minister of this country, I want to emphasize on this point that Indian judiciary will always remain independent and it will always serve its duty, its purpose, which is assigned to them in the Constitution of India.
As the law minister, again, one of the charges raised by the opposition is all the law enforcement agencies, ED, IT, CBI, etc., are only used against opposition leaders. Take the case of Mr. Sisodia recently. And somehow anybody from opposition who joins the BJP, the agencies don't go after them. As law minister, how do you respond to that?
This is not correct. In BJP, corruption is not tolerated. So there's no question of anything. I mean, like we are doing any bias activities, because anybody who is in government, anybody who is in BJP cannot think of corruption. In last 8.5 years of Modiji's government, have you ever heard any minister doing any corruption? In the UPA days, every day, every organ of the UPA government was deep involved in corruption, and the news used to come out every day. We used to be confused. How many corruptions are happening during UPA government? But our time, nothing sort of thing, corruption will be tolerated. That is why I very firmly would like to tell you and our friends here that the zero tolerance against corruption is the mantra of Modi government, and because of their constant attack, the action against corrupt people cannot be stopped.
One final word as we wrap up this session. I want to come back to where I started. Is the government thinking of bringing any sort of legislations for some of these recent decisions taken by the Supreme Court, including on the question of appointment of judges?
The parliament session is going on, so I will not like to talk about any intention of the government to bring legislation or any other action. But I can only assure you that we will do our duty, and the due diligence are given for any action, and we just don't take up any matter like that. We will only do when it is required, and if corrective steps are necessary, we will do that. The supremacy of Parliament to legislate laws will not be compromised and will continue. And once again, I must tell you, we will not encroach upon the territory of the other organs, but we will not also stop ourselves from taking corrective steps or right decisions as per the Constitution of India.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, can we have a round of applause for Shri Kiran Rijiju, the Union Minister for Law and Justice. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. I invite Joint MD Rishi Darda ji to please present a memento to Honorable Kiran Rijiju, sir, Union Minister of Law and Justice, Government of India. Thank you so much, sir. It was a very thoughtful session.